Lance, what's up, man?
Bro, how are you doing today? It's good to see
good.
you.
Thanks, man. Episode 76. Rolling along.
76. There's a great song. I hope that we get to hear on the outro by G Love and the Special Sauce called I-76.
Okay. RO's listening. See how he finds that. Hey, you were away this weekend.
I was. I went on a backpacking trip with a bunch of guys. We got to go fishing and a lot of hiking. I found out that I am not in as good shape as I thought I was, which happens. But I also learned that I still got it when it comes to fishing. So got to catch a bunch of golden trout, and it was quite a great time. It's so good to be away.
I literally sent me a photo of that fly rod there, and I know you were in the Eastern Sierras, which I've never spent time in the Eastern Sierras, but I know it's magical, and that's one of my dreams is to be there. So when I saw that fly rod in the Eastern Sierras, I was thinking you were having a magical time. You were probably living in the wild, like our author here, Martin Shaw.
I thought about Martin Shaw a lot while I was out there. You know, I was thinking about like how he would do his trip, and I purposely like stayed away from like any media or like I had my cell phone out there, but I only used it a couple of times to route find. So I was really proud of myself. I was like, wow, I spent a lot of time looking at the news, watching baseball, all the stuff that just takes over my mind. It's good in a good way.
It's nice to take a break
and worry about where I'm going to get water from.
Yeah. There's something magical about when you're in the wilderness, filtering water like through your bottle and just drinking from the creeks and the rivers and the waterfalls.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
So the crazy part was while we were there, we were walking, like I just landed this amazing fish, the fish I showed you. And it was like raining really hard. And then I could hear these like thunder bombers coming down. Then all of a sudden it started hailing. This is June, guys. We're in the middle of June and we got hailed on. Our whole campsite looked like it snowed. So it hailed for about 2 hours. It was crazy. It was like marble size hail.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was like, wow, this is, type 2 fun right now.
Well, we don't have details yet that we're willing to publish, but you and I we're very close to finalizing our anxiety intensive in the fall. And
that's right.
That will not include wilderness necessarily, but we will have beautiful scenery.
Yes, lots of beautiful ocean.
So stay tuned, people. That's coming up. And Lance, guess what I did?
I know what you did.
So if Dee Dee's listening and Helena,
I imagine they're like our number one listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
Tier 1.
I flew to LA and drove to Pepperdine, and I did Relate Strong training again. I did it in 2015 when I was married strong. Heather and I did. And then I think I did it in 2019 with Sharon when I was doing the leadership series there. So went to see how Dee Dee does it and did I did Relate Strong training workshop. And then I stayed for the second day, which is basically like training leaders. So that was really good. It was awesome to see Dee Dee work. That was her last one officially she was doing in that position because she'll be full-time chaplain at Pepperdine, which is amazing. And I am close to hopefully doing some Relate Strong trainings here in Texas. Whether those are things that open up to the public yet, or I have possibly right now a couple of churches I'm going to maybe do some stuff with some leaders with Relate Strong. So I'm pumped about that.
That's awesome, man. Dude.
Yeah.
I love Relate Strong. It's such a great resource that you can offer to churches and for people that are kind of on the cusp. Like, I don't know if I need therapy, but I could really live a little bit better in my life or my marriage. There's like an individual one. There's a couple one. Yeah. And it's a great way to gather around people and talk through your pain and peace cycles and this whole thing called usness.
Yeah, it's awesome. And they've done such a good job with the booklets and organizing it and getting people pretty quickly to recognize their pain and peace cycle, and more from like a psychoeducational, right? It's not therapy.
Right.
But
Very
it may,
psychoed.
yeah, it may lead people down that therapeutic route as well.
Yes.
Okay, let's hit some announcements. Want to?
Let's do it.
Before we do our episode here. Obviously, the big one, RT Summit, which again will be in Malibu, where I just was.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, of course, like always. So,
and you had Big Swell there, didn't you?
There was, I think, Big Swell, but I'm not, really a surfer, so I wasn't geeking out over it as much.
Wait, did you look at the surf?
I looked out at it from Pepperdine.
Oh man, but you didn't go down.
No, I got to run some trails up though in Westlake Village area, which was my jam that weekend. So,
fair enough.
March 4th and 5th at Malibu, or at Pepperdine University, Malibu. It's a Thursday, Friday, like 9 to 4, 9 to 5. And we'll have some event on that Wednesday. The 3rd for people who are in town. So registration is up. We have early bird registration now for the next several months. And good news already. You and I have said we expect this to fill up. There's a limited amount of capacity. And we are already pretty close to, I would call it like 15 to 16% filled to capacity already in the first several weeks. So,
easily.
You and I think in the next probably couple of weeks, we might be a third of capacity here. So people are signing up. Maybe not the next couple of weeks, but pretty soon here. So go over to the website, which is essentially restorationtherapysummit.com. It's linked on our Substack. Will be in the show notes. Register early bird. There's a student registration as well. There's also a group rate if you bring 10 people or more. So it's great for practices.
Sweet. Yeah, sign up, please. It's gonna be a great time. Also coming up, we have trainings we're excited about. We can only talk about, because this episode won't air until after Michael Pachuco's. So,
well, in case this airs before Michael Pachuco's.
Yeah, this is like the day it airs. Michael has like 4 slots left in his level 1 training. So sign up for it. It's June 26th to the 27th, if you're hearing this, of 2026. Also, for my level 2 training coming up, I have 3 slots left if you want to come join me and learn about taking restoration therapy to the level 2 status, where you get to level up and join us. It'll be fun.
Sweet.
Yeah. Hey, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, you and I, we're just doing a you and I episode. We had a guest, awesome guest, but we had to rebook him because of some stuff he had to do.
Yeah,
good stuff he had to do. Is called to serve at a camp, and so we will catch up with him later. But one thing you have been wanting to talk about for a while, and we thought we would just take a little bit of time to dive in today, is what do we do in the first session?
Yes,
as a therapist. Because we can think about it from an RT lens, which we're going to obviously, but there's a lot of things to think about in a first session. So we want to banter about that. And I'm going to just start the question. Lance, tell me about your first session. What are you doing?
So this is something that I've been really stoked to talk about. I love the first sessions, one of my favorite sessions of therapy, where I'm getting to know people. I love to get to know people. I love to get to know their stories. And I like to kind of do a little visioning when it comes to that first session. So usually, when we're doing our first session, we always want to lean in and get that, make sure we get all of our, P's and Q's noted, the informed consent, all those elements, confidentiality, all those things that are happening. And for me, I always like to kind of set the tone on what restoration therapy is like, And I always tell people, it's going to be interesting as we work together. I'm going to be really direct with you. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I never developed a poker face. So, you'll see a weird look on my face, which means that I noticed something weird happen. So I'm going to talk to you about it. So I generally like to kind of talk about restoration therapy from the lens of like, hey, what we know is that you are normally good people. It's just that when you're not a good person. And you get yourself into a lot of trouble. You either hurt others or you destroy yourselves. So my goal of therapy is to help you to step into that person that you're really called to be. And I always like to try and say, so who's that person going to be? Who are you trying to be? Like, what's that goal for you? This is where I'm leaning in. I'm trying to lean against the co-regulation. A lot of times your couples will come in the room and they'll say, oh, I just want my husband to quit being a or my wife's such a, and what I like to say is, okay, that's great. I can't change them, but I know that you can help change you. So what's the future, blank look like? Yeah. What do you like to do in your, like when you're leaning in on your first session?
Dude, that's interesting. Cause and you got me thinking here. I don't really mention necessarily walk them through RT or say, here's restoration therapy and here's what it looks like specifically, in a real concrete way. But I like that. I like the idea maybe, and that's something I'm trying to grow and is maybe coming in that direction. But in a first session, I usually say several things. One is this is an opportunity for me to get to know you and you to get to know me.
Yeah.
And to discern if this is a good fit. And I say you should know in the first session or two for sure if this is a good fit for us to work together. Mm-hmm. And so I mentioned that outright. I say, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and kind of want to hear a little bit of your story. Not a little bit, but I want to hear your story.
Yeah.
And the way the RT comes in, I don't say it explicitly there, but within that first session, I will, on this whiteboard behind me, I will probably have some semblance of their pain cycle mapped out.
Oh, nice.
I find that when they see that in the first session, they feel like really understood and hopeful. Mm-hmm. Oh, this person gets it. And I'm clear to say, hey, I just met you. I'm not saying this is
the final.
Or the perfect accurate. But what I hear you as you're telling your story is that this feeling comes up a lot that you're saying this thing or this behavior. And I say one of the things about therapy is that I find empowering, the model I work of is giving language to identify these old patterns that we get stuck in and to practice putting on new patterns. And so I do mention that the pain cycle, the peace cycle, the old self, the new self. And then when they leave, and we can back up, I'm kind of going fast here, but
it's all good.
When they leave, I like to give homework right away.
Yeah.
So I will either hand this to them, a journal with a printout of the pain cycle in it.
Oh, cool.
That I just want them to take. I have some questions that I prompt them with to kind of just simply notice this week what's coming up for them and to identify some stuff. Mm-hmm. Or I might follow up via email sometimes and I find that a lot of clients appreciate that they just don't walk out. And I think a lot of therapy people will leave and they're like, okay, what am I supposed to do next? And so I feel like, here's what I want you to do. The other thing, then I'll pause, is you were probably trained this way. I was trained this way. To do a really good intake meant you sat there the first 3 sessions just doing like family of origin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Might 6 hours on your mom or something like that, And I, for me, have found if I start with the pain cycle, that's my entry point into family of origin conversation. I don't start with just tell me all your story. It's like once I hear the pattern, that leads for me to, I think, really empowering stories for people. And it makes them feel like we're actually moving forward. We're not just stuck digging up the past. Right. So I don't know. That's where I've been kind of playing around with.
I,
Um, but I
I
don't
like that.
know.
I like that. There's, I think it's really funny because I think people come into therapy. Do you notice this where they'll be like, there's like this high level of shame attached to like them being there, and they're like, yeah, like I can't believe I'm like this. Um and I think they have these preconceived notions on like, and now you're gonna blame everything on my mom and dad,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which we will blame their parents a little bit. Um, but I think there's this element of like, no, like when we're coming into therapy, we really want to help you um, feel empowered to change the way you're being. And I do like to highlight that idea of like, when we do therapy, I'm all about empowering you to be better. Um,
I like that you say that.
yeah. I also like to warn people about I feel like with restoration therapy, you have to warn people.
What's the warning?
I have to warn people that I'm going to interrupt you a lot. And you're going to you might get a little frustrated with me trying to tell your story. But for me, some of the important things is what's going on underneath the surface. So as we work together, you'll notice that I'm going to stop you probably every 3 to 5 minutes as you're telling a story, because I really do want to hear about the bad thing that happened, but I also need to understand the working model that's going on inside of your heart
Mm.
when you get all like jaggered up. So I like to tell people that I'm going to stop them a lot, and ask questions. I also will tell them I'm going to ask you to do a lot of you know you're probably gonna have to stand up in the room with me. There might be a few moments where like it might feel awkward as we do stuff together, and just know that as we do these types of things, you're welcome to say you don't want to do them, but we're also trying to unlock some deeper things inside of you.
Dude, I like that. And I think like that lowers even some anxiety for me just to say it, to name it out loud, even as a therapist for me ahead of time, because I can get stuck in my own anxiety in the room of not doing some things that I think I should be doing. But I think
Yeah,
to name them out loud and to collaborate and to invite them into the process, I think would be really helpful.
yeah,
I think that'd be an area for me to grow in. Um, I think I went from really strict intakes, in your first few years as a therapist where you have to follow all the guidelines.
yeah,
Here's all the questions,
yes,
till I got pretty loosey goosey because I always wanted people to feel like I was present and engaged.
yeah,
So that means a lot of times I don't even take any notes. Like I don't have a notepad in front of me. Like right now, my memory's actually really good, knock on wood. So after each session, I take all the notes of
wow,
everything that I heard, and that's how I track. Because I've had some therapists where I'm like, "What? Why are they spending so much time writing down when I'm having a conversation with them?"
mm,
But then I've seen Terry with the notepad scribbling away, and then he pulls it up and he looks at something, and he says something that you said, and you're like, "Oh man." So all that's all to say, like I'm still trying to figure out, I think, the best way for me to do an intake. I know that one of my goals though is to um I don't know, to say, not to say, but to I want them to experience love and trust in the room as a
yeah,
therapist, you know.
yeah. I actually do keep I have what I call a cheat sheet.
Okay.
And I developed this when I was doing um, uh, when I was doing intensives, because it was so hard for me to keep track of all the characters. And when you're doing intensive work, like if you're just like writing like quotes from them the whole time, there's like no organization. So I decided, after like sitting in a few intensives, like I'm going to start doing having a cheat sheet for my like primary note. Um, and on my cheat sheet, what I normally do is I use one of these yellow sheets of paper,
Yeah.
And on the yellow sheet of paper, what I normally do is like on the top corner here, I put all of their goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have like their desires for like what they're looking for and how they want to get better. Then I use the middle part here. What I put here is I always put the genogram. I'm a genogram, like
I do love a genogram.
like having a good genogram and like the different players. So then when we're in the middle of session, I will like name their parents by first name or their sister or whatever, or their uncle's, their uncle's ex-girlfriend that did yada, yada, yada. So I'll say the name, which I feel like because I can usually remember story, but I'm not good with remembering names. So I love to be able to have a full genogram. On my genograms, I usually note like relationship type things. So like I'll have like, the mother father element here, in steps or whatever. And then I'll put like 3 words or phrases for each person. So I can remember like that type of character for that person. And then then I'll draw the lines of like close to line or the jagged line for how they're connected. So I'll usually have the genogram here, and then I'll put over here, like, if it's like a really good story that I know I want to reference later on for doing peace cycle work, I'll put it right here. And I'll put like, stuck on mountain story, so I know I'm going to come back to that story at some point. And then I'll put their top 3 things or difficult things through their childhood and top 3 most things that they're most proud of from their childhood. Because I like to have some good references when I'm doing peace cycle work with my clients of like, here's an actual legitimate time period where they got better. Then on the bottom here of my...
And for people who are listening, if you go to the video, you can see Lance looking at his
blank
yellow legal pad notepaper that's turned sideways, and he kind of shows where he's diagramming and writing these things down.
Yeah. And then the great thing is what I'll do, and this is kind of like, as they're talking, I'll be like on this half, if it's a couple, on the first half of underneath this red line, I'll put their feels, copes, truth, and new action. So I'm monitoring that our whole first session. This is kind of like my cheat sheet that I'll have on hand.
So in a first session, you'll have a good understanding of some of the pain cycle stuff. You have key figures, characters. You'll have like a working genogram maybe that you have kind of been sketching out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, we'll see how far we're going to get, but this is like a cheat sheet that like kind of ends up being my big reference throughout the time that we're working together. So I'll know where I am in the therapeutic process just by looking at my cheat sheet of like, oh, I don't really have too many pain words connected to safety or identity on here. So I'm always referencing that. And what I'll do, usually I either in the first session, if it's a couple, I'll do exactly what you said, where I'll just say, hey, tell me about when you guys get into a fight, or tell me about the last good fight that you had. And let me try and start to understand what happens inside of you when you're struggling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'll go to their pain, to their histories.
Yeah. Because I remember at a time when I started doing a little more executive coaching, and a friend of mine who was pretty influential for me in that, he was a marriage therapist, worked at the Hideaway Intensives, great therapist, but started doing more coaching. And he was like, and you've kind of said this in another podcast before, where the way that we traditionally have done therapy hasn't worked for a lot of people,
Yeah.
And my friend was saying, we can bring people in and they're in a lot of pain, and we'll spend all this time just digging up, trying to get their story and all this past, and they're not feeling like we're moving in a direction.
Yeah.
And so I've always tried to figure out, how do I get enough in that first session to understand some stuff, but to also communicate some hope to the client that they can actually see some difference for themselves. Like they can imagine what change will look like. And that's a question I ask a lot of times in therapy, which is, I guess that goes back to the magic question and solution focus, which is essentially,
Yeah.
hey, even a few weeks from now, 2 to 3 weeks, what would be the first sign of change for you? What would you have to see to give you a sense of hope that things are
Yeah.
changing, that you move in the right direction? And when people like name that, I think it's really helpful for them. And when I can kind of, even when they can name that, even in relation to some of the pain cycle we've even started to map out in that first session, I think they're like, oh, okay, here's what I got to work on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'll do the you from 20 sessions from now is walking in the door and they have done the work. They made it through. They had to talk about the thing they didn't want to talk about. They had to deal, with that big mountain in front of them, but they persevered and they made it through. When that you walks in the door, who has been through it all, what are the things that you hope that they would be able to say to you? And they're not going to give you the lottery numbers, right? Because they know you blow it. I always have like I always warn my clients that I tell the dumbest jokes, but and like, what do you hope that they would say to you, about what's different? And that answer is something that I'm always like leaning towards, that future person of who they're trying to become.
So I'm sure people will ask sometimes, can you tell, or do you have a sense of like that you want to communicate to a client or a couple in the first session? Like, here's what I think, how many sessions you might need or probably will need, just to kind of get them wrapped around what that work looks like. And what do you say typically?
Yeah, I usually will tell my clients that if you're working with me, the first 3 to 4 sessions, we're kind of figuring it out, right? So it might be, I want to make sure that the work I give you, the homework and all these things, like the first 3 to 4 sessions, mainly about me, right? Where I'm putting things together. Once I have a really good feel on where things are, then I'm going to start pushing you forward. And generally, if you really engage in the work and you're trying to get better, generally this takes about 12 to 20 sessions. That's the typical flow when I look at like all my data for the clients I've seen over the years. It's usually 12 to 20 sessions. So that's where I'll kind of throw down with them, and I'll say, and the things that make it go longer are if you have secrets and you're not being real with me about things. Don't waste your money coming in to see me while having an affair. Don't waste your money while coming to see me while being addicted to drugs. Like,
yeah,
like I know you have that thing that you swore that you would never tell anybody, but this is the one place where it is sacred. Nothing leaves these doors unless there's some like safety concern. So I want to tell you, this is the place where you can finally be real.
So like 3.5 months to 4 months of like weekly sessions, if we're doing weekly of like work, if they're committed to the work. Yeah. Which in the grand scheme, that's some good progress pretty quickly. When you think about, hey, man, if it's January and I can be in a significantly different place by the end of March, or the end of April, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And I'll tell them, I was like, by that time, you will have the tool that will change your life.
Yeah.
It is the tool. Like there's like, when we look at everything that we do in restoration therapy, you will have that tool in 12 to 20 sessions, which is the 4 steps, obviously.
Do you think, because you train level 1 and 2?
Yeah. I'm the rare one.
Is there a right way to do an intake from an RT perspective, or is there a lot of freedom in how we do an intake? And is there like a couple of specific things that we have to do, but there's a lot of freedom around it?
I think I really want to differentiate what we do in restoration therapy with my intake. Like
make it clear, this is what's different. Okay.
Yeah, like I think that always throws people for a loop.
Huh.
When you start saying like, hey, I really care about your feelings and what's going on, but I also care more about how you can have power over your feelings. So
Hmm.
we're going to do a little bit of diving into the pain from your past, and how it affects you today. But I really want to encourage that first session where my clients are going to know that I'm going to be asking them to have courage and to be strong. I think that's one of the big things with RT that, you know, like other therapy models, it's like they're just going to, hold you tight or whatever, like, or very Rogerian and just hear you out and all these different things. Like RT is going to really push you to be better, which I think that's a lot different than a lot of therapies that are out there.
Well, that's convicting. I think no, I'm going to try that. I think again, I think people, if they go to my website or they talk to me, I mean, I talk about restoration therapy all the time and we talk about the pain and peace cycle, we do the
Yeah.
work, but like, I like the idea of being more explicit in that first session of here's what differentiates it. Here's what it's going to be asking you to do. Here's what it's going to be asking me to do as a therapist, you know? Like I'm going to interrupt more, I'm going to intervene more, I'm going to ask you to get up and do some things.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you as a client to not just sit in the pain, but actually empower yourself to take steps to get out of the pain.
Yeah.
I like that. And I think that would also lower some anxiety because I'm pretty clear about the pathway too. We're
Yeah.
both pretty clear.
Yeah.
See, this is why I talk to you.
Because I think people
how
come into
many sessions
therapy.
do I need with you? You can get me. Can you get me out in 12?
Dude, let's do it. But I'll tell them, like, a lot of people think therapy is coming in and like I finally have someone to tell about my horrible week to. Which, yes, it is that, but we're not going to hang out there. We're going to learn on how you can be a better person. And yeah, how do you like to talk about integration in your first session? Like if a client.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I was just answering an email before you and I hopped on. Somebody asked me if I was a Christian therapist, essentially. So I was thinking about that language, and I don't know. I mean, if a client's in my office, I just usually say, I feel like I've been trained in some of the best psychological models and the best like theology, and been to seminary, and I was always trained to integrate faith and theological components where it's helpful to the client, and I don't think there is a specific roadmap to do that. Honestly, I think it comes with practice, that you are a native in both theology and or faith, in the practice of your faith, and a native in the sense of like your psychological models. Does it make sense? When it's like speaking, it's like being able to speak two different languages and like knowing how to integrate and flow between those two in any conversation. And I feel like any therapist can do that, but I think it just comes to practice, like familiarizing yourself with the faith stuff, whether it's your own journey or reading some things and practicing some things, and the same with therapy, psychology stuff. So I don't know. I just say, I also said to someone earlier, I feel like RT is the most integratable model there is. And, language like the old self, new self and stuff. And so I'm going to be looking for opportunity to do that. But I don't know if I have like an elevator pitch type, like it's like really concise. I think it's more, it comes up in conversation with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think they say, oh, he's a former pastor. He was worked in a church, went to seminary. Like this is just part of who he is. And so it just comes really natural to me. And like, I love it.
Yeah.
Like everything I see is through these lenses. I can't unsee it.
Right. It's kind of this, unfortunately, like we recognize there is a bent, and it's trying to be able to. Yeah, I think that's a good.
Do you say something about it? What do you say?
what I'll tell them, I'll say, hey, one of the big things about, I'll kind of do a quick like background on me. And like, if it's like I'll say, hey, just so you know, I went to Fuller Seminary for my Master's of Divinity, and I'm an ordained pastor. I'm also married to a pastor. So I always like to throw out that part in the beginning, that my little woman empowerment moment. But I will lean in and I'll say, and here's the deal with me and therapy is, when we work together, I want to tell you that I'm praying for you guys. I actually have markers all over Carlsbad and San Diego that remind me to pray for each of my clients. There will be a place where I mark to remember to pray for, George, and I'll be praying for you every time I see that spot. But when it comes to therapy, we can make it as much or a little as you like. The talking about, theological things. Here's the deal. I'm not going to be your pastor. I'm going to be your therapist. So that means I'm not going to be the ref telling you what's right, what's wrong, in that realm. But I will help you lean in, and step into the whole person that, God's calling you to be, if that's what you would like.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to try and kind of allow them to know like that it's there. I always point, I have a Bible in my office. And so I'll point yeah, so we can talk about scripture if that's important to you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually had a lot of clients over the years. I had some people I'm thinking about recently who didn't want to come see me because they knew I was a Christian and they saw my background.
Yeah.
But they ended up coming. And I think it's because, and this goes back to RT, they felt loved and safe in the room, and I wasn't trying to proselytize them.
Yes.
And I was just being, hopefully a good restoration therapist, and understanding your pain and peace cycle. And I think that, a lot of people will come see me and they have no interest in that.
Yeah.
Or they're kind of curious, but that's not what the angle they want to work from, and I do differentiate. I would do say, I don't refer to myself as a Christian therapist. It's not on my language on my website or anything. Yeah. But if you read enough of my bio, you'll know my background. And I don't consider myself, I'm not a nouthetic therapist where it's all we look at is the Bible. That's it. There's no other, it's just, that's it. Here's the answer. In terms of,
yeah,
that's a whole different background of training and belief and not believing in any psychological tools, probably from that background perspective. So sometimes I find myself having to differentiate how I'm different from what people's expectations are.
Yes.
Of what they think a Christian therapist is. Because there's a lot of, I'm just going to leave it at that. I have to kind of differentiate that.
I think that's good. I think that's wise. And I also like the idea. I used to say that all the time with my first session. I would say, hey, as we're working together, I do have a faith background, and we can make that as much or little as the work that we do, but I'm not trying to proselytize you or do anything in that realm. So if you ever feel like something like that's going on, just know that's not my intent, is to try and push anything upon you, outside of you becoming the better person that you need to be. That's going to be the thing I'm really going to push, but we can kind of work together. But please, let me know. One of my favorite lines in my first session, I think I stole it from Terry, is I'll say, hey, and by the way, since I never developed a poker face, I will venture in, and I'm going to probably ask you a few questions and things like this. And here's the thing with me is I know that I am right 85% of the time. And I don't know why, but my clients really love that. Where there's this element of, just because I venture out and I'm pushing something or trying something with you means that I might be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. And I always make this joke about my dad being a rocket scientist at NASA.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, yeah, so, my dad worked at NASA, and like he had to be right 100% of the time.
Yeah. People's life depended on it.
Yeah. He used to say, one shit kills 1,000 attaboys, but for me, if I get something wrong, I'm probably going to hurt your feelings a little bit, which I hate. But I think we can recover from that. So if I ever make a mistake, please let me know. I really would like to support you in the healing process. So that's the other big piece I like to kind of throw out there in my first session.
Okay, so what's your main takeaway from this little conversation? People will have their own takeaways. What are you walking away with?
Well, number one, I'm wondering for myself, like hearing you out, Rhett, like I'm wondering about maybe trying to put the pain and peace cycle, like there's at least the pain cycle out, like a little bit more aggressively. I remember you talked about that in your first session. I usually wait till it's like, I like to do the big reveal pain cycle, where it's like, aha, you've said this and I hear this and but I might try and experiment this next few months with my new clients and see putting that pain cycle up right off the bat and just say, hey, so I was seeing this and that's what happens for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's just in the first session, it's probably just on a board, on a whiteboard. Yeah. And even getting up out of my chair and diagram and stuff is more than a lot of clients I've seen therapists do,
Yeah. They're like, wait, you don't just sit there?
Yeah. It's not, I don't put up on these big white sticky notes on my door till like later on typically.
Okay.
And start like mapping it out a little more, So let me know what you think. I think what I'm taking away is I'm going to practice more being explicit in that first session about like, what is RT essentially and how is it different? And because of that, here's some things I'm going to ask you to do as a client, and I'm going to ask myself to do as a therapist, and just make that clear. So I think we're moving to this collaborative understanding with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that would help me actually as a therapist, empower me to do some things because I've made it clear from the beginning. I'm not jumping into it later.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do that. That's what I'm gonna do.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel challenged today.
Speaking of that, Lance, I'm gonna have to go in a minute because I gotta hop into a session. What about you?
Yeah, I gotta take my daughter to school and then get into session too. So
daughter to school at 10 o'clock. It's like a summer school.
It's summertime, so it's like, I guess it's not school. It's like day school. I don't even know what they call it. And it's summer program. That's what it is. Like those camps. So
yeah, and if people are listening, give some feedback on this. We kind of want to unpack some more stuff about the therapeutic process. So we want to start with the first session today and kind of just talk it through. And I think I have some questions for Lance later on about, I think, mapping out the pain and peace cycle and getting that up and some timing on that. So we'll see how that goes. But if there's people listen to things too and they'd like us to talk about something specific, or you want to come on and talk about it specific with Lance, let us know.
Sweet. So thank you, Rhett. I feel challenged. You're a good man.
All right. I feel challenged too, and we're challenging all of you to go sign up for the summit.
Boom.
See you, man.
All right, man. Cheers.
Later.